hired to sell more milkshakes by McDonald's, right? Now, you would think selling milkshakes is pretty cool. And you say, okay, so when, I'm sorry, I'll step back. You start to think about hiring stuff. I hired the cup of coffee I drank to give me a little caffeine, which is when I learned about, 2 miles an hour ahead of normal. And I hired shoes to feel comfortable. Like at the moment, I'm wearing my shoes because I'm going to the game. When I made this presentation, I was wearing dress shoes, so I hired them to be as comfortable as they can. You look at what do you hire a milkshake to do, right? You say, well, is it delivering sweet goodness? Is it drowning your sorrows, right? You want a beverage with a meal? It was none of these things. When Clay Christian asked, he said, well, when do you sell the most milkshakes? Let me ask you this. When do you think McDonald's sells the most milkshakes as a percentage of sales during the day? What time of day? 2 or 3, 11 o'clock? 11 p.m.? Yeah, you're all wrong. Breakfast. They sell the most milkshakes at breakfast, right? Right? Everybody, you got the puzzle. I always call that the puzzle dogma. Huh? Okay, so no. So the reason was they started saying, well, we don't understand why. Well, why is it that you're selling so many milkshakes? And they're saying, well, first of all, the premise that everybody walked in was that the milkshakes at McDonald's were competing against other milkshakes, which would make every one of your answers make great sense because that's what we traditionally think about a milkshake. But it turns out when they ask people, they say, well, why'd you buy a milkshake? I want something that fits in my hand, fits in my cup holder, easy to drink through that big ass straw, takes about 40 minutes for me to eat, right? It's still there when I get to the office and it fills me up till the end of breakfast. So the milkshake wasn't competing against other milkshakes. The milkshake was competing against greasy sandwiches and yogurt cups that if you open up in the car, they explode all over your blouse, right? Or your tie, right? And all the other nonsense. So understanding what the job to be done is becomes incredibly powerful. All right, now I'm going to talk a little bit about how technology has changed us all. There's been some really interesting studies that say that our brains are different now than they were a half a generation ago. Right? How many of you guys, you're on the young crowd, how many of you can remember your childhood friends' phone numbers? Right? See, you're maybe the only one. I come from back where you had to remember that stuff, right? Like that, or maybe written on the wall next to the long green avocado cord that we all see in Stranger Things, right? But I look at my buddy, Jeff Erskine, 742-1895, Greg Ellis, 749-4324, John Murphy, 742-4882, my mom, 742-6394. This is back before you used area codes, right? Here's the funny part. I dropped my 15-year-old son off at boarding school in Florida. I can tell you his phone number starts with 903. I haven't talked to 2 of these guys in 30 years. Our brains have changed. We don't need to remember anything. You guys, I got kids, and they always ask me, hey, Dad, how did you guys coordinate schedules when you were going to go meet somebody somewhere? I'd be like, we said we'd meet them, and we met them. It was pretty straightforward. Right? And she goes, well, but what if something changed? I'm like, and they're late. At some point you go, nope, you ain't here, we're gone. Right? There's no longer, no, I'm on my way. Oh, shit, I was talking about it. Right? You can't do that. Right? And then finally, how many of you guys, it's a young crowd. When I started, you actually had a map in your car, right? The Rand McNally, and it was sat right over here in the back of the passenger seat, so you'd be driving down the road. Oh, man. Okay, and you get it out and you look at it, A7, okay. All of these things exist here now. What's happened is we call it Alexified. We've been Alexified, right? Every single piece of data we want, we can get instantly. It's instantly available to us in seconds on just about any device we have, right? And so why should customer service be any different? Why should an event, this event even, there's a bot for this event, we'll talk about it later, right? So you look at it and say, okay, who scored the most touchdowns in the history of the NFL? Anybody? Yeah, I looked it up, took me 3 seconds. Antonio Gates, right? All right, how do you make a souffle, right? I don't know, I'm not very good at that nonsense. I order in, that's what Uber Eats is for. But you know what, you can go online and find a video in seconds that'll teach you how to do it. How to get to grandmom's house. I was in Louisville 2 weeks ago. How do I get to my mother's house? Bang, gives me instant directions, right? Again, we're all being taught this. Okay. Now, when you start asking customer service questions or walking in the front door of an event, what happens, right? You have a client that's in the Javits Center. Right? How many of you guys have been to the Javits Center in New York for anything? It's a big expo space. Well, the reality is, as soon as you step outside of the world of general knowledge and get into the specific knowledge of customer service that's specific to your company or your company or your company or your event or your event or your event, or for that matter, the Utes game or the BYU game, crickets. You can't get that. You can't get that instant answer, right? Because you can ask a question, crickets, you can't hear anything. You're looking. Does that make sense what I'm saying? You hear nothing but crickets, like there's no answer. You look at it and you say, I can find out about tight ends, I can find out about all this general knowledge, but the more specific it gets, the harder it gets. We call it publicly private, privately public, right? It's publicly private. It's not easy to get the information about whether or not there's Wi-Fi here. It's not easy to get information about, hey, there's going to be this delay to get here. It's not easy to figure out exactly what floor everything's going to be on. That's publicly private, right? In contrast, once we're in the room, once we're a customer, that's privately public. They want us to have all that info, as much of it as possible, in every channel we can, and we got that wonderful piece of paper, right? So it's about now delivering that information out intelligently. And Freddie Mercury, I saw Queen 2 weeks ago, snuck in the show, a good time, right? He always said, I want it all, I want it now. That's what your customers do. They want it all, they want it now. Okay, so now let's talk about chatbots. What if there was a solution with a 95% correct response rate and a 98% open rate, right? Didn't require a download, zero friction. Everybody had it. They knew how to use it, right? More importantly, it becomes the channel, the opening to get to all sorts of other data, and it was easy to set up and easy to deliver, right? That would be kind of interesting. It's an interesting application of AI. And this comes back to this concept that Boris talked about. It's easy to make promises, hard to keep. We say it's really easy to build a chatbot. It is really, 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 really difficult to build one that works, right? How many of you had a craptastic chatbot experience online somewhere where you just want to ask a question? Yeah, right? You go, well, no, we want to sell you something, but I need to return something. Which product are you interested in? Right? That's not a great experience. So when you look at it, first of all, I want to separate. There's two kinds of chatbots, right? They're what we call rigid structured bots. And let's be honest, they're not AI at all. They're a decision tree, right? We've all seen that. You go and you really only have a couple of choices, right? And we see the same thing when we call customer service to the credit card. I called my healthcare company yesterday, and please tell us what you want. You can choose this, or this. I wanted that. Like, oh, I'm sorry, did not understand. You can choose this, or this. But I wanted that. Right? That's not AI. That's a decision tree, right? So we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about conversational bots, right, which are much more difficult. And when we look at it, we say, okay, what do we mean by deep conversation and multi-channel bots? Okay? We're talking about bots that operate many different places, 24/7, and deliver a higher level of interaction. They're using NLP, they're using natural language processing to deliver a little bit more success. So what do we mean by deep conversation? Right? Here's a pretty simple question. Where's the bathroom? But it's not simple at all. Because bathroom is a synonym of ladies and gents, and loo, head, and crapper, and porta potty, and facilities, and powder room, and dunny, and literally 212 other things. And where's the, as it turns out, is a contraction of where is the. You could just as easily say, please show me the, how do I get to the, where on the map is the, do you gotta. So you could do any of those things. And as humans, we would recognize all those variations, and there's over 42,000 of them, as a reasonable request that we should understand on how to get to the bathroom. And that's what you want a bot to do, is understand the human at a reasonable level and deliver a conversational response. Now, I will tell you, occasionally, no matter how good you do, the bot's going to get stuck.